All right, y'all. Thank you for listening. As always, salute to all the street wolves. We got the homie Phil Forde on the radio right now. What's going on, homie?
Hey, Jay, what's up, man? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, man. And I also wanted to thank you very much for always, sharing the links of all the episodes and stuff like that, man. I appreciate the support.
Oh, no problem, man. I love what you do, and you do a great job, and, you're on your grind, and I appreciate that, man.
Thank you. So, you're from Canada?
Yes, sir.
Were you born and raised in Canada?
No, I was born in Chicago. That's why you'll see on my Twitter all of my Chicago teams in Illinois, because all my family's back there. But pretty much been raised in the Toronto area my whole life. But love the U.S., very, very pro-U.S. in a lot of respects politically. But yeah, that's the story.
So I wanted to talk to you about a few things that I've heard about Canada, and of course, I'm not the type of person that just jumps and runs with everything, so I'm glad I have you here to talk to, and maybe you can give me your perspective on things.
Absolutely, Jay.
So I want to start off, no matter what country you discuss, it's always one of the greatest, one of the most meaningful, let me say that, one of the most meaningful topics is always going to be healthcare. I've heard that you guys' Canada's healthcare system is a lot different than ours. Number one being, and I don't know this is true, that's why I'm asking you, is that your healthcare is actually free. Can you elaborate on that for me?
Well, it's not free, that's for sure. It's free, and the thing is, it's free in the sense that when you go to a doctor, you're not generally given a bill that you have to pay. The government covers a lot of the service. Mind you, the taxes here are ridiculous, and that's where the cost comes in. Everybody, you're taxed at a very high level here, and a lot of that money goes into the system that is used to pay for healthcare. Another thing is that like say I went to New York for a weekend and I broke my arm. I would probably get a bill for about $15,000 in New York if I went to a hospital there. Whereas here, I wouldn't, I'd go in, they'd treat me, and I'd walk out probably without having to pay for anything. But mind you, everybody gets taxed to the hilt that pays for all of that. And there's problems with it too. Like if you need an MRI, if you think you tore a tendon or something, and it was bugging the shit out of you, and you wanted an MRI, you'd probably have to wait like 3-4 months to get one.
Wow.
So I mean, there's the healthcare up here. It's good. Don't get me wrong. We're very appreciative of it, but it's not free. That's for sure.
Tell me a little bit about maybe the welfare system out there. Is there one at all? How does that all go?
Yeah, no. There's definitely a welfare system. The Canadian culture is very. It's a very caring culture. So down in the U.S. it seems to me to be a lot more rugged. Like a lot more dog eat dog world down there. Whereas up here, if you're on welfare, like but the government makes sure that you're trying to find a job, and they try to, if you're out of work, they try to get you in retraining programs and get you back working. It's not like free money. And if you were on welfare, you wouldn't be getting a lot of money. You'd be basically getting enough to, pay for your food and that, and maybe put a roof over your head for a little while, but nobody's getting rich on the welfare up here. And it's frowned upon. Like everybody, you want to see people working, you want to see people earning their keep, not being given anything, and that was one of my big problems with during the past presidential election with Bernie Sanders. Bernie's a good man, but he was promising free tuition to everybody to go to university at state schools. And I'm a Democrat. I'm a proud Democrat. I'm a conservative Democrat. I'd probably be a Republican, but they're a bunch of racist motherfucking sacks of shit, and I can't stand them. But if the thing about the free university was, I don't believe in that, because although you want your population to be educated and be informed, at the same time, when I went to school, I worked summers on garbage trucks to pay my way through school, and that was hard work. But I was earning my way. I was earning my tuition. I was in class. I was showing up and getting my grades and reading my books and doing my homework. Nothing was given. You earn it. You're not given it, because if they're giving away free university education, what are they going to be giving away next? Free Maseratis, free motorcycles, free houses? No, you got to earn stuff in life, especially in a culture of ours that a lot of people have worked to build and preserve our freedoms and our way of life. I believe in a strong work ethic for sure.
And I could totally respect that. But you sound to me like you're trying to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're earning it, you actually appreciate it more, opposed to people who are just getting it and they fuck it off.
Exactly. I mean, and part of earning it is the work that you have to do. Like you have to show up and put your time in and show ambition and just work hard. And when you work hard and you work for something and you get it, it's very satisfying, as opposed to just having it handed to you, which I don't think teaches anybody anything. And if you're given things, you're just going to squander them without thinking about it, because you're expecting the next thing to be given to you. Whereas if you earn something, you enjoy it, you protect it, you preserve it, you keep the upkeep on it, like a car, for example, or a home. And I just think it's a lot better way of life when people are going out and working to feed themselves and do well for themselves.
Yeah. So you brought up something that was part of my list of things to ask you, and you said how you feel that the Republicans were racist, right? So
yes.
I've heard mixed batches of things of people talk about racism in Canada as a whole. Where are you with that? What is it that you see as far as racism in Canada?
In Canada, I think wherever you go, there's going to be a certain level of racism. I don't think you can escape it generally. Like I went down to Barbados a few years ago, and I was really struck by how it's a very mixed white-black culture, but everybody got along pretty well, I thought, on the surface. Up here in Canada, we're a very, very multicultural society, just like the U.S. Like if you were, in New York, I'm sure that it's a melting pot of a gazillion different types of people.
Yeah.
It's pretty much it's definitely the same up here, especially in Toronto, which is the most populous, the biggest city in Canada. Like in Canada, we have a population of about 35 million in the country. It's coast to coast, and our country is large. If you look at it on a map, it's probably arguably bigger in landmass than the United States, and it also spans from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean, and it's also bordered on the northern tier by the Arctic Ocean, and that's always a constant source of friction between ourselves and the Russians, who seem to like to, have their submarines, go on provocative excursions around there. So. But the country's huge. But 10 million, the population is 35 million, and about 10 million of those 35 live in the province that I live in, which is Ontario, and which also has the capital city, Ottawa, and the most populous city in the province, which is Toronto, which has a population of anywhere between 2 and 4 million. But I think, there's a lot of different cultures here, and there's a very strong culture with people from India and Pakistan, among others, and it becomes a bit of there's a lot of controversies that people from those regions that come over, they have they wear certain religious garb like turbans or whatever, and they're always pushing to have exceptions made and stuff, and I think there's a strong feeling, I think, with a lot of people that are from here originally, that these people, anybody that comes over, and I'm an immigrant to Canada. I came from the U.S. Anybody that comes over, you're lucky to be in the fucking country. You can't be dictating or trying to change the laws to suit your own the things that you had back home. You know what I mean? Can
you elaborate on that a little bit more though? Like, is there like a law against wearing turbans and shit over there?
No, there's not. But people are allowed to wear that stuff. But say you were in if you were in the police force or in the army, sometimes like Sikhs, like the people that are of Sikh heritage or Pakistani heritage that might wear those things, and they're expected to wear a different type of hat or helmet or something, when they're in the field working, like protecting. And sometimes controversies come up. Somebody is trying to rebel against that, and they want to wear their turban out there, and they want to do this, and it makes national headlines, and everybody's just like, fuck, really? You're lucky to be here, man. You know what I mean? Like, we're all lucky to be in a beautiful country like Canada or the United States. They're two amazing countries, and it's an amazing thing that they're neighbors along the longest unprotected border in the world, which is about 3,000 miles long. But yeah, I mean, I think there's racism wherever you go, no matter where, even up here in Canada. And it takes an enlightened mind, an educated mind to realize, and I think the great majority of Canadians realize that we're a very tolerant society, a very accepting society, and a welcoming society, and a society that tries to get along, and one distinct difference between Canada and the United States is guns. Down in the U.S., in a lot of states, the NRA has a lot of sway, a lot of political power, and they don't want any restrictions on guns. And of course, the dickhead that's in the White House right now, he's filleting them left, right, and center, which is sad. He's sad completely. I mean, you can get me going on Trump for about an hour, but up here, guns are a lot harder to get. There's people that have them. There are murders in Toronto. There's shootings, stabbings all the time. But the murder rate here, like, what would be the murder rate in New York on a given year?
It ain't Chicago bad, but it's bad.
Yeah, Chicago's an embarrassment. I mean, they should be able to, I wouldn't be opposed to the National Guard going in there and trying to clean that up, because it's ridiculous how bad Chicago is in certain neighborhoods. But yeah, up here there's a lot less. There's the murder. I mean, we have fewer people, mind you, too, but in Toronto in a given year there might be maybe 35, 50 murders, whereas in Chicago there's probably like 700-800, maybe 1,500 a year.
And you know what? I did an episode with Big Cannon from Chicago. In that episode, and anybody listening, I'll try to throw it in the link. I'll link in the description box so you can go back and listen to it. And he and I spoke on that, and I will have to say, man, New York used to be really, really bad. New York has gotten a hell of a lot better. When I was growing up, man, that shit was the norm. I don't know if it's ever reached as bad as Chicago is now, but I know New York was very bad back then. And thank God that things are different, because I'm a father now. And so I don't want, I'm happy to not have to, yes, I do got to worry about it. Yes, I do live in the hood. I'm from Harlem. I actually just back and forth between Harlem and Brooklyn all the time. It's just one of those things that I'm way more comfortable at having children now than when I grew up. When I grew up, it just was going down right there, broad day, in front of everybody. Yeah, for sure. Like, and I'm old enough to remember. I mean, I've never even been in New York before, but I do read up a lot on it and keep an eye on the U.S. and things that happen there. And I remember back in the 80s, well, the 70s and the 80s, late 70s, maybe the early 70s, the crime was rampant in New York, especially murders, and it was really, really bad. And when Giuliani came in as mayor, he turned it all around. He gets a lot of credit. Rudy Giuliani, he shouldn't know. I'm going to tell you why, because Giuliani should get the credit for having a big stronghold on gentrification. That's what he should get credit for, because him and the people, his political timeline, all they did was buy up all the shit that, see, what people don't understand is the more crime and violence, the more the property value goes down. So all these motherfuckers did was allow us to not bring us the resources and stuff like they do to Chicago, not have the jobs, not have all of that stuff, pretty much allow us to kill ourselves, even though it's on us. We should take responsibility for our own actions. But the point I'm trying to make is they sat back and watched all that shit happen, and then just came and bought up everything. And now they're pushing us all out of our neighborhoods. That's it. Giuliani gave a fuck about the people from the neighborhoods he gave a fuck about. He didn't care about everybody else. Giuliani's thing was locking motherfuckers up for petty shit, giving them a bunch of time. Therefore, all you doing is clearing up the streets for the gentrification to happen, especially on the level that it has here in New York.
Well, hey, man, you live there, and I take your word for sure on that. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot more to it. All I remember is that, you know, when before he came in, the murder rate was crazy. Yeah. And during his time as mayor, it went way down. And I think a lot of people appreciated that, but the way he did it, maybe that you allude to, you know, had some odorous background to it as well.
When it comes to Canada, just as a whole, how much different? Because I have no knowledge of Canada from a lot of angles. Do you guys have like the same voting system as us? And how corrupt can the politics be in Canada?
How corrupt?
Do you have the same voting system as us? And does it get as corrupt as it does in America?
We do have a democracy where you get one vote. Say though, it's different in the sense that so if you were going to go vote on election day, you'd probably have multiple people to vote for: president, senator, congressman. Am I right?
Yeah.
Whereas we, like well, I'm pretty sure this is nationwide, I would be voting for, like in a federal election, I would be voting for my local seat, my local riding, they call it, like my local, you know, my district. And whoever is elected in that district would go to Ottawa, which is our capital, because we have our parliament is in Ottawa. We're a parliamentary democracy based on the British rule. Canada originated from the UK, just like the United States did, but we've remained a lot more loyal to Britain. We're a Commonwealth country. We have very, very strong British ties. Like when the Queen comes over, she's come over a few times, like over the years, but she always comes through Canada and makes a big sort of national tour. She'll go to different cities across the country. But we have that one vote system. So if I'm voting in an election, I wouldn't vote for 3 or 4 different people. I'd vote for my local person, and then that person, whoever gets elected, represents my area. And then the prime minister, like right now we have a prime minister. We don't have a president. We have a prime minister, and our prime minister is a guy named Justin Trudeau, and he's a good-looking guy. Like on TV, he comes across as, you know, like the camera loves him. His father was prime minister in the early 70s and 60s and 70s, and he was one of the most popular prime ministers the country's ever had. Now, I personally didn't like him because I thought he was a big spender, and he was also very cozy with Fidel Castro, which I don't like. I don't like commies. So I wasn't a big fan of Pierre Trudeau, Justin's father, and I'm not a big fan of Justin either. A lot of people think that he's in over his head. But he's you know, he won the last federal election, and I think he's got a fairly big, like his party has the majority in Parliament, so I'm not sure how many seats there are in the country, like across the country, but there's like probably like 100. I'm going to look that up right now while we're talking, but his party is in power, and basically one of the big differences between Canada and the U.S. is when a president's elected, he's elected to a 4-year term. Whereas here, generally, the prime minister will be in power for 4 to 5 years, but he could be out in like a year. Like if something happens like that is controversial and causes the opposition to rise up and protest, there could be an election called fairly quickly, federal election. And the other big difference, one of the biggest differences between Canada and the U.S. politically, is that your elections, which I don't mind because I'm a political junkie, they go on forever. like when you're running for president, you're running for basically 18 months. When you're running for prime minister here, it's like 50 days and it's done. You know, and there's not a lot of the big money has corrupted American politics. The Supreme Court a few years ago when Obama was president, they struck down a law that limited the amount of money that can be put into campaigns and whatnot, and that just opened the floodgates for all this dirty money, because the Supreme Court said that when you donate with your money, that's a form of free speech, and your free speech and your ability to contribute financially should not be limited. But it also opened, like I say, it opened the floodgates. I'm looking at the Canadian Parliament right now, the numbers, and the party in power, the Liberals, Justin's party, they have 183 seats. The main opposition, we also have more parties here. We have like 3 or 4 parties in Canada as opposed to 2. I mean, there's other parties in the U.S., but the Democrats and the Republicans are predominantly the 2 parties. But here we have 3 or 4. The Liberals, they have 183 seats. The Conservatives have 99. The NDP, which is a socialist party, they have 44. And the Bloc Québécois have 10. And that's another thing with Canada. Quebec sits to the east of Ontario, and Quebec is a big province. It has a couple of big cities in it. Montreal, which is a tremendous party town, and Quebec City, and a very strong French culture. And there's been times where there's been movements in Quebec to want to separate from Canada, to secede.
Wow.
And actually in 1995, I think it was, I'd have to go back and look at the year, there was a big vote on, like, inside Quebec, yes or no, do we leave? Just like there was in Britain to leave the European Union. And the Prime Minister at the time in Canada was a guy named Jean Chrétien, who I also despised. He was a liberal, from the Liberal Party, not small L liberal, like the Liberal Party. And he was a French Canadian, so he had some skin in the game. You know, he was from the province that wanted to get out of Canada, but he was also the federal leader trying to keep the country together. But he almost fell asleep at the switch. He didn't realize, like, what the sentiment was in Quebec for leaving. And he kind of was late to the campaign. It was the yes or no campaign. I can't remember if it was the yes we leave or the no we don't. I'm not sure which. Can't remember. But the province voted to stay in Canada by like 0.3 or 4%. It was really close. They were really close to leaving. And that was a real scare where Canada almost kind of came apart at the seams in the mid '90s, I think it was. Might have been in the 2000s. I can't remember now, but. So those are some big differences in the 2 countries. You know, our elections are a lot shorter, and our politicians are sort of, we have a prime minister as opposed to a president, and our parliament, like our government, can be dissolved, and a snap election can be called at any time. So, yeah, it's a great country though. Fucking love it. It's a beautiful country, big clean country, great natural resources. Bordered on by both oceans, and people coast to coast are fantastic. Yeah, and it's one of the best kept secrets in the world how nice Canada is. And I'm a dual citizen. I could probably go down and live in the U.S. if I wanted to, but I've spent my whole life here and it's home. You know, so when I do get down to the U.S., I love it. I was down in Kentucky a couple weeks ago and drove down and just loved the drive and love seeing the United States. And I think the States is going to be all right, no matter who the dickhead is that's in the White House right now.
I personally want to go to Canada. I got to get my fucking passport. There was other shit that was hindering me before from being able to do that. From what I've heard from people, the Canadian borders are very, very strict. You get turned around for any little thing. Is that true? And what is your knowledge of the borders?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It wasn't always that way though. It really changed after 9/11. 9/11 was. Yeah, it was the tipping point because obviously, and 9/11 was one of the most tragic days. Obviously, I remember when that happened and how crushing it was. Because loving the United States like I do, to see that happen, and especially that beautiful city, those beautiful towers, those beautiful people, taken down in such an evil way by those evil motherfuckers. But after that happened, the borders got really tight, and actually, like on my trip there, it wasn't too bad. I mean, I was with the wife, and we basically, we told them where we were going, and they did a quick search of our car, and we were through no problem, and because they looked at our passports also, and I have a clean record. I've never been in jail or done anything bad, or I'm a pretty clean living citizen. But if there's any suspicion, they'll pull you over and give you they'll go. And it's not just the Canadians; the Americans will too, because you got to go. Because when I leave the U.S., I generally go through Detroit. But I distinctly remember after 9/11, I went to an NFL game in Buffalo. Go see the Bills and the Bears, my beloved Bears, and I was on a party bus. We had a bus full of from work, and we had about 45, 50 people on this bus, and we went to the American border to cross over to get to Buffalo, and they made us get off the bus, and they searched us, and I think this was the American border guys, but they gave us a real hard time and held us up for quite a while. We were lucky to make the game in time, but yeah, and you know what? After 9/11, everything changed. They want, and I'm glad the security's tight. I want to fly or drive with peace of mind that bad people are being detained and investigated.
I agree with you 100% on that.
I mean, at the same time, I don't want to see anybody, profiled or just given a hard time because of this or that. But one thing I heard, though, was that, some people were complaining that they would go to the border and the border guards would want to see their phones. They would want to, and their social media. They want to know if you're on social media sometimes. I've heard stories about that.
Yeah, so, that's why I asked you, because I heard that it can get really crazy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, fortunately, nobody asked me about that, but I've definitely heard some horror stories from travelers that have been really rousted at the border and asked a lot of questions and stuff. So if you're crossing the border, you should be on your best behavior, have your paperwork in order, and just be straight ahead and answer the questions and be honest and just hopefully you get across no problem.
Well, I want to thank you, man, for opening up and being able to talk about so many different things here today, man. I appreciate it.
Oh, fuck, Jay, I appreciate you having me on, man. You're an awesome guy, and fuck, wish you nothing but success, and hopefully we can do it again sometime down the line.
No, we could definitely do it anytime, man. I'm with it. As we say to everybody else, number one, subscribe and follow, especially if you're listening now on iTunes. We need you guys to rate it so the more it goes up on the rating list, other people see that the podcast even exists. But make sure you follow us on YouTube and on SoundCloud. I want to thank Phil Forde. And then, like I said at the end of every episode, the 3 things you got to do for the Wolfpack. Wolfpack being your family and your inner circle, man. That's provide, protect, and educate. And hopefully we'll see you guys on the next episode.